Hi, my name is John Tyler, and I'm going to bring you this expose of what progressives are, not only in America, but throughout the world. Progressives. Oh, you've heard that. Oh, yeah, Hillary Clinton says, I'm a progressive. Barack Obama was a progressive. Boy, was he progressive. But not the way you think. They use the word progress, and they elongate it to say, I'm progressive. I'm leading you toward progress, toward a better America. The fact of the matter is, progressives are really communists in sheep's clothing, if you will. They want to totally destroy you. Am I some nutcase conspiracy theorist? No, I'm going to prove to you everything that I'm going to tell you. I'm going to demonstrate. I'm going to show you words in writing, testimonies, everything to show that what I'm telling you, sorry for yelling, but everyone in America, it seems, and worldwide almost, are oblivious. I like to use the word ignorant because that you don't want to get past the headlines. The headlines are fake and predetermined news to get you to this point. Progressives, communists, progressives want to have a one world power, one world globalist government that will rule over the masses. That's you. I'm going to prove everything. I'm going to start with back in the 50s with Nikita Khrushchev. For those millennials out there that are listening that have been brainwashed to death in the public school systems, you might learn something. So you can either turn me off now if you want to stay ignorant, or you can learn something and protect yourself, even though, biblically speaking, you can't, because this is going to happen. But I might as well lay out for you what is happening, why it's happening, and how, it's nothing you can really do about it, except don't be stupid, don't be ignorant. Stay tuned. Okay, I have just shown you a photo of Nikita Khrushchev. Vice President Mike Pence said in 1956, not long after the end of World War II, that Russian Communist Party leader Nikita Khrushchev said, "We will take America without firing a shot." What did he mean by that? He said, "We do not have to invade the United States. We will destroy you from within." How's he going to do that? Knowing, he said, that overt communism would be rejected, socialism was used to begin the destruction of America from within. I'll show you exactly what we're talking about. Started with Nikita Khrushchev. The progressives in the United States and throughout the world are now unmasked, or about to be, right here, right now, by me. They prey upon all of you ignorant people in the United States and abroad. They prey upon you. They know that you're not going to look into anything, so they're controlling every facet of your life, and you don't even know it. You will after you see this video. Their goal, ultimately, is to gain total control over the population of the world. How are they going to do this? Well, they're going to do this by fundamentally transforming America from what it was when our forefathers developed the Constitution to what it has, I'd say, devolved into since at least 1963. Everything happened it came to fruition in the 1960s until and including now. Let me play this Obama tape for you.
We are 5 days away from fundamentally transforming the United States of America.
Now, I want to read some of the 45 items found in what's called the Communist Manifesto of 1963. Please Google those words so that you don't think that this is some random nutcase ranting conspiracy theories. And this is what you're going to discover if you really, really care to come out from your ignorance and know the truth of what is going on in the murky waters of politics, of religion, of education, of media, and your future. It's all about you. Listen, learn. There was a congressional record of January 10th, 1963, about the Communist Manifesto. It was put on record. But the communist agenda was established long before that. A guy named Sidney Herlong Jr., a Florida congressman, stood up in front of Congress to say this: "Mr. Speaker," sounds like Tip O'Neill, "Mrs. Patricia Nordman of DeLand, Florida, is an ardent and articulate opponent of communism. And until recently, she published the DeLand Courier, which she dedicated to the purpose of alerting the public to the dangers of communism in America." And Sidney went on to say, "At Mrs. Nordman's request, I include in the record, under unanimous consent of the Congress, the following current communist goals, which she identifies as an excerpt from a book called The Naked Communist by Cleon Skousen." Now, here are the current communist goals, the manifesto, if you will. 1. U.S. acceptance of coexistence as the only alternative to atomic war. In other words, mutual agreement that defenses would be not used, the atomic bombs, if you will. U.S. willingness to capitulate in preference to engaging in atomic war. That was part number 2 of the Communist Manifesto. They wanted to develop the illusion that total disarmament by the United States would be a demonstration of moral strength. President Reagan said, "Peace is through strength." The communists wanted to they wanted to put us on a moral guilt trip. They wanted to permit free trade between all nations. Free trade, you hear that lately? Regardless of communist affiliation and regardless of whether or not items could be used for war. They are done. They said they wanted to extend long-term loans to Russia and the Soviet satellite communities or countries. They wanted to provide American aid. They wanted us to provide American aid to all nations regardless of communist domination. They wanted us to grant recognition of Red China and admit Red China to the United Nations. Red China is in there. Why do they do that? They want the votes, they want the power. They want us to set up East and West Germany as separate states in spite of Khrushchev's promise in 1955 to settle the German question by free elections under the supervision of the UN. So, on 13th of August 1961, the communists wanted separate East and West Berlin. The Berlin Wall started to be erected, constructed by the German Democratic Republic. East Germany started on August 13, 1961. See, the 60s. It's all starting to come about and bubble up to the top. The Communist Manifesto, written by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, was first published in 1848. It formed the basis for the modern communist movement as we know it, arguing, get this, that capitalism would inevitably self-destruct and would be replaced by socialism and ultimately by communism. That's their goal. You hear about socialism all the time now? Keep listening. The Manifesto of 1963, let's continue with that. They wanted to prolong the conferences to ban atomic tests because the United States has agreed to suspend tests as long as negotiations were in progress. They wanted us to allow all Soviet satellites their little countries around them. Individual representation in the United Nations. Why? They wanted to control more and have more voting power. See how they're manipulating things? And they keep getting this done. They wanted us to promote the UN as the only hope for mankind. If its charter is ever rewritten, they want to demand that it be set up as a one world government with its own independent armed forces. Listen to that. They wanted us to resist any attempt to outlaw the Communist Party. They wanted us to do away with all loyalty oaths. Loyalty is not a big thing in Russia and the communist countries. They wanted us to continue giving Russia access to the United States Patent Office. It's the Communist Manifesto. But wait, it's going to get a whole lot worse. They wanted to capture one or both of the political parties in the United States. And they did. They captured the Democrat Party. Another demand was to use technical decisions of the courts to weaken basic American institutions by claiming their activities violate civil rights. You hear that all the time now. And more people have rights. They want to get control of the schools and use them as transmission belts for socialism and current communist propaganda. They wanted to soften the curriculum, get control of the teachers' associations, and put the party line in the textbooks. That's why your kids are now socialists when they graduate grade school or college. They wanted to gain control of all student newspapers. Why? So they can fill up these mush mines full of garbage. They wanted to use student riots to foment public protests against programs or organizations which are under communist attack. Planned Parenthood, you name it. They fight, they get violent. They wanted to, get this now, infiltrate the press, get control of book review assignments, get control of editorial writing, policy-making positions, gain control of key positions in radio, TV, and motion pictures. So the news you get from the AP starts at the AP and filters through ABC, NBC. They want to continue discrediting American culture by degrading all forms of artistic expression. An American communist cell, by the way, was told to eliminate all good sculpture from parks and buildings and substitute them, get rid of them or substitute them with shapeless, awkward, and meaningless forms, which you see in parks now. Southern, in case you don't follow the news, Southern statues and monuments are now being removed from parks and buildings, including universities. Why? To cause further division and hate between the North and the South. They do it between blacks and whites, progressives, communists. They do it between Spanish and blacks, you name it. They want to control art critics and directors of art museums. Our plan, they say, is to promote ugliness, repulsiveness, meaningless art. I'm going to post a picture here of Jesus Christ in a jar of the artist's urine. Don't think that's degrading? In 1989, the 60 by 40 red and yellow photograph of the crucifix plunged into a vat of Andres Serrano's urine ignited a congressional debate on U.S. Public arts funding. Here's the photo. This is what the communists wanted. This is what they got. This is what's going on. And then you see it and you get mad for 5 minutes. They wanted to eliminate all laws governing obscenity by calling them censorship and a violation of free speech and free press. They did it. They got away with it. They wanted to break down cultural standards of morality by promoting pornography and obscenity in books, magazines, motion pictures, radio, and TV. Have they done that? Of course they've done it. This is progressives. They wanted to present homosexuality and degeneracy and promiscuity as normal, natural, and healthy. Have they done that? You let them. They want to infiltrate the churches and replace revealed religion with social religion. They wanted to discredit the Bible and emphasize the need for intellectual maturity, which does not need a religious crutch. You see that all the time too. They wanted to eliminate prayer or any phase of religious expression in the schools on the ground that it violates the principle of separation of church and state. You know that they got away with that in 1963. Get rid of prayer in public schools. Communist Manifesto. Progressives in the United States have done that. In these two landmark decisions, Engel versus Vitale, 1962, and Abington, Massachusetts, of course, school district, Shemp versus the United States in 1963, the Supreme Court established what is now the current prohibition on state-sponsored prayer in U.S. schools. Did the communists, progressives, infiltrate America and the Supreme Court and get that done? History reveals that they did. Next, discredit the American Constitution by calling it inadequate, old-fashioned, out of step with modern needs, a hindrance to cooperation between nations on a worldwide basis. Our Constitution is a hindrance. They want to discredit the American founding fathers. They've done that. They've rewritten history in your kids' school books. They wanted to present them as selfish aristocrats who had no concern for the common man. Did they do it? Am I lying? You've seen it? They want to belittle all forms of American culture and discourage the teaching of American history on the ground that it was only a minor part of the big picture, and they want to give more emphasis to Russian history since the communists took over. Disgusting. They want to support any socialist movement to give centralized control over any part of the culture, education, social agencies, welfare programs, mental health clinics, and so forth. Here is a photo of two phonies, Bernie Sanders and Ocasio-Cortez, two socialists who are now sponsoring socialism in the United States. I want to introduce the Cloward and Piven strategy to support why I say communists want to bankrupt the United States. And if they bankrupt us, that would bankrupt the rest of the world and create this huge crisis. And that happened, Cloward and Piven, in 1966. The Cloward-Piven strategy is a political strategy outlined in 1966 by American sociologists and political activists Richard Cloward and Francis Fox Piven. That called for overloading or overwhelming the U.S. public welfare system in order to precipitate a crisis. Load up the financial institutions of America. They used the guise that this would lead to a replacement of the welfare system with a national system of a guaranteed, what they're pitching now, annual income, guaranteed annual income, and thus an end to poverty. Except all of you paying the taxes to give people for free, you'll be broke. Bankrupting America by overwhelming the monetary system. In 2019, $22 trillion in debt. $22 trillion. Back in the 70s and 80s, we were basically debt-free. They want to eliminate all laws or procedures which interfere with the operation of the communist apparatus. Eliminate the House Committee on Un-American Activities. That was back in the 50s and so forth. And they got their way because in 1975, the House, Congress, abolished the committee and its functions were transferred to what's called now the House Judiciary Committee. So they got exactly what they wanted. They get this one: discredit and eventually dismantle the FBI. You know that in 2016, Trump became president and the FBI progressives in charge enabled Robert Mueller to investigate Trump. As a result of the lies and deceit by the FBI, which you and I now know, the FBI is now discredited by most Americans. Did the communist progressives get their way? You be the judge. You're in the court. Infiltrate and gain control of more unions. Why? They get union funding. Unions pay for progressive Democrats to run the House and the Senate. Infiltrate and gain control of big business. Progressives now own most of the largest corporations in America, like Amazon, Facebook, Disney, Google, Microsoft, Johnson & Johnson, and millennials are now heading up advertising departments for corporations. How does this affect you? I'll tell you how it affects you. Gillette, for example, ad executives, millennials, are now demeaning men who want to be real men. And then you have anywhere from Target department stores to Cheerios. They all now have an agenda of social restructuring. And how they do this is through advertising. You know it. You see it. You know exactly what's going on. Most ads and TV shows now have racial or homosexual components or overtones to them. There's a black father laying on a couch, the white mother's out in the kitchen, and the little kid is bringing a bowl of Cheerios to the dad on the couch. Gay couples, you'll see them in many ads or TV shows, all part of the Communist Manifesto to fundamentally transform America. Progressives, communists, progressives, communists. Transfer some of the powers of arrest from the police to social agents. That's their goal. Treat all behavioral problems as psychiatric disorders, which no one but psychiatrists can understand or treat. Progressives call upon the destruction of ICE enforcement agents in favor of sanctuary cities, which tells America that the laws on the books of illegal immigration are going to be ignored. They're called illegal aliens. But the progressives want you to ignore it. So that's what they're pushing in the media and so forth and so on. Remember, take over, infiltrate the media. Dominate the psychiatric profession and use mental health laws as a means of gaining coercive control over those who oppose communist goals. Hey, you're discriminating against whatever. That's what they're doing. Political correctness was another thing. Be careful what you say, or you could go to jail. You know it and I know it. Any disputes with mental health advocates are called racist or homophobic, and schools now even have to have mental health professionals. Why? To be able to work with kids who have not yet developed their brains for learning. They want to educate, really brainwash your kids, and they've done that for the past 20 years. Your kids are now mostly socialists. You know it, and I know it. And it kind of scares you, doesn't it? And it should. Get this one, Communist Manifesto. Discredit the family as an institution. Encourage promiscuity and easy divorce. Massachusetts came up with this no-fault divorce. In and out, boom, boom, boom. Hollywood, TV shows, the media, social media, and even some churches have indoctrinated all people to thinking divorce is just a consequence of a bad relationship. Some churches teach homosexuality. In fact, they have homosexual churches out there now. Every TV show or movie have couples cheating on each other, and they have people believing that being gay is somehow not a choice, but it's something that people are born with. And you're buying it. Why? The media told you to buy it. Your schools have taught you to buy it. If so, why do they feel the need to promote it and teach homosexuality in the schools? Why do they promote it in books at your son or daughter's school? Why? If they're born with it. Emphasize the need to raise children away from the negative influence of parents. They've succeeded. Attribute prejudices, mental blocks, and retarding of children to suppressive influence of parents. That's what your teachers and psychologists and psychoanalysts are telling your kids. Look, your parents are stupid. They don't know anything. Don't listen to them. This is done during the 8 hours that teachers or professors, progressives, have your children under their influence and control, and peer pressure abounds against parents. What? You listen to your parents? What are you, nuts? Their goal, too, I'm so tired of just witnessing the facts that are unfolding. Create the impression that violence and insurrection are legitimate aspects of the American tradition. That students and special interest groups should really rise up and use united force to solve economic, political, or social problems. That's why you see people bashing windows in at colleges, preventing certain speakers from speaking. You really believe that progressives are not promoting insurrection against parents and against political opponents, meaning against Republicans or against conservatives? Of course they are. The media is. You're seeing it hourly. Manifesto: overthrow all colonial governments before native populations are ready for self-government. Self-government really to them means this, that the progressives will fill the void of the governments that are overthrown. They'll step in like they did in Venezuela, and you see what's going on there, and you see what's happening to the people who are starving. They're revolting in the streets. They want freedom, which you're losing. They wanted to internationalize the Panama Canal. January 12, 1964, President Johnson's administration was in control, and Panama's President Roberto Chiari severed relationships with the United States and demanded complete revision of the treaty provisions, possibly including nationalization, say that twice, or internationalization of the canal. They did it. Communist Manifesto, progressives say nationalize the Panama Canal. The presidents of Panama and the United States signed the Panama Canal and Neutrality Treaty on September 7, 1977. Under the treaty, Panama gained full control of the canal in 1999. Progressive ultra-liberal Jimmy Carter was the president at that time in 1977. Progressive Jimmy Carter got it done for the commies because he is a progressive. Repeal the Connolly Reservation so that the United States cannot prevent the World Court from ruling over us. That's what their goal was. Well, in 1946, when the United States Senate was debating the aspects of the UN Charter, Senator Tom Connolly of Texas, a Democrat, restricted the jurisdiction of the International Court of Justice in domestic matters, assuring that only the United States could dictate the court's jurisdiction. In 1959, Senator Hubert Humphrey proposed repealing this restriction. Liberal Hubert Humphrey proposed repealing this restriction with bipartisan support from Democrats like William Fulbright and Republicans like Dwight D. Eisenhower. Another progressive liberal. Eisenhower said this. He said, "True peace and friendship throughout the world cannot come to pass unless there is an international rule of law." That kind of violates our Supreme Court, our Constitution. Eisenhower said it. Despite this support, the public objected, and the Humphrey resolution never came forward for a vote, and a vote for repeal has not been seriously offered since. But now the progressives are gaining steam again in the House of Representatives, and they've already have control of the media. But there may be no need for a Senate vote, they said, as the United States can simply positively affirm the right of the United Nations to have jurisdiction over certain domestic matters in our country. What? The Connolly Reservation that they wanted to get rid of, they did. It does not prevent, so our progressives say, doesn't prevent the court from assuming jurisdiction. It simply requires American compliance. This has already occurred with the monitoring of the 2012 elections. 2012 elections, when Obama was president, they're making international laws about monitoring elections all over the world. The American people are beginning to demand a world community, they say, a world community presence in this country to stop the systematic abuse of the poor and minorities, so the international court should be seen as a positive refuge for our grievances. This is why you have to listen, you have to study, you have to know what's going on behind the scenes. The media and the progressives want to make it so that a world court for globalization rules and laws can circumvent the United States Constitution. That's why progressives like Hillary and Obama and many, many, many others want to get rid of the Constitution, get rid of Second Amendment gun control. The goal of the progressives is to form a one world government where they retain power. Power over who? Over you. This is worldwide, not just confined to the United States. And they will unite with Islam in the near future, so that Sharia law becomes the law and the court system of the world. That's their goal. Progressives do not like to get their hands dirty, so Sharia law and Islam punishes Christians and Jews. Great! Primarily, they will kill gays as they now do in Islamic countries. So I don't know why the gay community is all in favor of progressives and the Democrats. It's going to come down around their neck. And there will be horrendous times coming down the pike. I guarantee you. The progressives have accomplished at least 95% of their communist, socialist, progressive agenda. And they are preparing to finalize their world domination probably by the 2020 election cycle. They're pushing far left socialist agenda. They're pushing it. And they got 20 people running for president, as you know. And I got to ask you, will you be voting for socialism in 2020? This is what the progressive communist agenda calls for. Will you vote to give up the freedoms you now have, including your freedom of religion? That's what they're going to force you to do. Will you quietly give up your right to defend yourself with your own weapons? That's why they're pushing for gun control. Remember, the communist agenda calls for this. Demand that a new world order be set up with its own independent armed forces. You don't have a gun? You can't stop these people, this independent armed forces representing the world government, the new world order. They're the only ones that's going to have guns. You won't. If Sharia law takes away your guns and there is no more U.S. Constitution or Supreme Court and you're forced to give up your guns, you are a sitting duck for an armed force to rule over you. Now what you want? If it is, you got some choices coming up, that's for sure. Now the Bible speaks of this very thing happening in the last days, which we're now in. It will come to pass that a new world government will be formed and it will have a leader. You really don't have any control over it. Why? Because actually God told us in his Bible this is going to happen. Everything that you see happening is foretold, but you don't care about getting in the Bible. Revelation 13, 16, and 17 says this, "And he, the world leader, causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. And he dictates that no man or woman might buy or sell unless they have the mark or the name of the beast," which is Antichrist, "or the number of his name, which is 666. You know that. Hollywood even does movies about it, just to throw it out there. When will all of this end time scenario take place, you ask? Happily, we have a hint. Preachers look to Matthew chapter 24 to tell us that Jesus can come at any moment. No, he can't. Why can't he, John? Because if they continue to read in the Bible, they discover what I'm going to tell you. Luke, the physician and writer of the book of Acts and the book of Luke, spelled it out when this will happen in Luke chapter 21, verse 7 through 13. It says this, "And they asked him," meaning Jesus, saying, "Master, when shall all of these things be? And what sign will it be when these things shall come to pass?" And Jesus answered them. He said, "Take heed that you don't be deceived, for many are going to come in my name, saying, 'I am Christ.' And at the time, and as the time draws near, don't go after them. Don't listen to these false prophets that are going to abound. By God, we know. We see them on TV all the time even." Verse 9 says this, "When you shall hear of wars and commotions, don't be terrified, for these things must first come to pass, but the end is not near." Verse 10 says this, Jesus said unto them, "Nation will rise against nation," which they are, "and kingdom shall rise against kingdom," which they are. "And great earthquakes shall be in different places, and famines, and pestilences, and fearful sights and great signs shall there be from heaven." He says, "But before all these, they shall lay their hands on you and persecute you," Christians and Jews, "delivering you up to the synagogues and into prisons, being brought before kings and rulers for my name's sake." Jesus is saying this, and he was teaching it to the Jews at the time, and that's about to happen, by the way. "And it shall turn to you for a testimony." Verse 20 skips down to verse, or I do. "And when you shall see Jerusalem encompassed about with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh." The desolation of Jerusalem, of Israel, and of that temple. Desecration of the temple. Why do I say that? As this. This is where some clergy and theologians argue that Jesus is talking about the temple that was built and desecrated and destroyed in 70 AD. But this cannot be true because Luke carries it forward to verse 27 and 28. He says these things did happen in 70 AD. The temple was destroyed. But you got to read a little further in Luke 21, verse 27. "And then shall they see the Son of Man," Jesus, "coming in a cloud with power and great glory." Verse 28. "And when these things begin to come past, then look up and lift up your heads, for your redemption draws near." So a temple has to be built on top of Mount Zion once again before the end comes. And that temple has to be desecrated. How do I know this? Because unlike you, I get in the Bible and I study this stuff. Who says the temple will be built again on Mount Zion? Well, in the Old Testament, Daniel, the prophet of God, said so in Daniel 9:27. He said this, "The ruler in the last days will make a treaty with Israel for a period of 1 set of 7, which means for 7 years." So, Antichrist will be making a treaty with Israel and says, okay, everything's cool, you can do your sacrifices, all that. But halfway through it, 3.5 years, that same ruler will put an end to their sacrifices and offerings. And as a climax to his terrible deeds, he will set up a sacrilegious object that causes desecration in the temple until the fate decreed by God for this defiler is finally poured out on him. This defiler is the devil, but this Antichrist, it's called. And Jesus reiterated what Daniel said in Matthew 24:15. So Jesus is quoting the Old Testament Daniel prophet. So when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel standing in the holy place, what holy place? The temple. Let the reader understand. Jesus said that. Let the reader, me, and now you understand. Verse 21 and 22, Jesus said this, for then, when you see the Antichrist desecrating the holy place, then you shall see great tribulation, such as was not seen since the beginning of the world, to this time, no, nor ever shall be. So a great time of tribulation that is never seen before will happen when this temple is built. Therefore, when the temple is desecrated, meaning it first has to be built and then completed, it is then that you will see the last half of the Great Tribulation period. Because halfway through it, Jesus says he's going to shorten it and take his saints out of the way. Verse 22, he says this, except those days of 7-year tribulation to be shortened, there should be no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those who trust him as Lord and Savior, those days shall be shortened. How short? 3.5 years. 2 Thessalonians 2, verse 3 and 4 says this, let nobody deceive you in any way, for that day will not come unless the rebellion comes first, and the man of lawlessness, that's Antichrist, is revealed. You will see him, you will know. The son of destruction, this Antichrist, who opposes and exalts himself against every so-called God or object of worship, so that he takes his seat in the temple of God, proclaiming himself to be God. That is the desecration of the newly built temple. So, you will see that happen in this generation. Therefore, when you see that first shovelful of dirt coming off Mount Zion, which it should take about 3.5 years for the temple to be started and then finished. Halfway through, that treaty is broken by this New World leader. Here's a photo, 3 of them actually, of Mount Zion now, where the Dome of the Rock stands, a mosque, and then leveled, and then the temple built. Upon completion of that temple, the Antichrist will immediately desecrate it after surrounding Jerusalem and killing or imprisoning the Jews. And Jesus said, when you see this event, look up, because your redemption is near, and you will see Christ returning in the clouds to pick up his saints. Then all hell breaks loose on the earth for 3.5 more years. Do you really want to be around then? You're going to be around, but wouldn't you rather just go with him when he comes to pick up his saints? How do I know all this? Revelation 13:5 says this, and it was given unto him, that is Antichrist, a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue. How long? 42 months. 42 months. Let's see. 36 months is 3 years. 3.5 years. The Bible says that. Satan will reign and wreak havoc on the earth for 42 months. 3.5 years, the last half of the tribulation. First half, Jesus shortens, takes the saints out. But Jesus and the saints will be in heaven during the last 3.5 years, thank God, because horrible, unspeakable torment will be unleashed upon this earth. Do you really want to be around that? Imagine a world with no Holy Spirit influence in it, no God influence, no Christian influence. Gone. Don't be the one who remains during that time. We've got a salvation link up on johntyler.com/S for salvation, and then small letters ALVATION.HTM. If you go there, you'll see why you need a Savior. You'll see how to, there's a prayer up there. Say it or something like it and mean it. Then the Bible tells you that whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved, and you won't have to go through this tough time. So the progressives that you think are just liberal Democrats, sorry, but they are communist, anti-God, anti-American people who want, their goal is to destroy you, to overthrow America, and to create this one world government. But they're foolish because God already said way back thousands of years ago that this is all going to happen. So we can't stop it. All we can do is identify it and at least be aware of what's going on in our world now, with the media, with the school systems brainwashing your kids, and with the new millennial kids coming up that are totally uneducated. Anti-God socialists. That's what they are. They're grooming the next generation, which is really the now generation, to continue in the media, in Hollywood, in TV shows and all that, to totally destroy American values, parental control, parents, churches, religion, anything to do with God, to destroy it. That's their goal. That's who progressives are. They are now, in my opinion, and hopefully yours, unmasked. So at least you know who they are. And by the way, I know I'm going to say this and you're going to say, oh, this guy's a Trump supporter. Donald Trump is the only one who, in power right now, who is fighting these people, these progressives. He's the only one that's fighting them. So that's why he's under tremendous pressure. It's almost like the devil himself and all the demons in Congress, in the media, in Hollywood, they're all out to stop him because he stopped their progressive agenda from happening so far. But he has no control, or very little control, over what God said is going to happen. So anyway, with that, I hope you can sleep at night. At least now, maybe you know a little bit more. If you don't believe me, I don't care. I don't care. I know where I'm going when I die. John 3:3 tells me where I'm going, for example. Anyway, I do care about you, though, and I don't want you to have to suffer through this time that's coming up very, very quickly. So until then, I'll see you later.